The first thing I thought about was how was I going to get some drugs or how was I going to get some money? I was a drug addict. I did 22 years in jail, in prison. And then, I started out, I did a 3-year sentence in prison. I got out. I went back for 21 years. Got out and went back for 3 years. Got out and went back for a 4-year. And it didn't really matter whether I was in prison or on the street. It was the same concern, you know? So I victimized people in prison just like I victimized people on the street. I was the kind of person that looked at other people as victims. If I wanted it, then I figured out a way to take it, you know? And I didn't have any kind of consideration or empathy for other people or for their suffering. There was one time that I got out of prison after 21 years that, yeah, I could say that I tried, but God wasn't in the equation, you know, and I kind of thought like, I got this and I'm gonna do it. And I maintained for a certain period of time, and then I got back into drugs and I got back into a life of crime and the same old pattern of behavior that I exhibited all my life. Funny, my little brother was in county jail. I happened to be speaking to him over the phone from prison, and he said, hey, you ought to check out Liberty Ministries. So I went to my chaplain and asked him to, you know, if they could check it out, because I was actually in Mississippi in a federal prison. I dropped out of 5th grade, so I didn't go to high school, I didn't go to junior high, you know. So, and there's certain things that you would learn in those classes that I didn't learn that other people learn. Socialization and other things, you know. So I would find myself later on in life with a deficit, you know, things that, so this place gives you the time to catch up. And it has a way of revealing where you are deficient at. Everybody that I've encountered with Liberty Ministries, that's associated to Liberty Ministries, right? They're all about facilitating, they're all about creating and supporting an environment that just like, it allows God's change to take root and to flourish. God, you know, my brother told me about Liberty Ministries. I prayed about it. The application process is very religious questions in the application. And so it was God leading me.
Brittany, the truck is here?
The biggest difference that I get out of this place, right, is the interaction with other people, the way I view other people.
You have a wonderful day. Be safe. Joe.
Yep. You know, what can I do to make somebody else have a little bit more value in their life, feel a little bit better about themselves, or even just for the day, for the moment, just to have a little bit of a better day. It's so much different to be able to actually laugh a joyful laugh, you know what I mean? Or like celebrate Christ and smile and laugh and feel good. It is such a big difference. It's like night and day. Jesus Christ says, you know, there's 2 commandments. They try to trick them. What's the most important commandment to follow? And of course he says, love thy God with all thy heart, body, mind, and soul, right? And then the second commandment, which I think is like just as important, is to love your neighbor as I have loved you. You know what I mean? So that's a tall order because Christ loves us, you know, unconditionally. But you know, really it's the basics of all of it. If I can look at you with kindness in my heart, with concern for your suffering, with what you're going through in life, and be attentive to that, and somehow help you, support you, that's wonderful. That's Liberty Ministries. That's what they're doing each day with all these guys. You come here and you want to apply yourself, you know what I mean? If you're tired, you know, and you're just worn out, there's no better place, you know?
Good evening. I want to thank you for taking the time to join our virtual banquet. Tonight you will hear stories of changed lives and meet some of the men and women who are having their lives transformed. At Liberty Ministries, our goal is to end recidivism, a critical problem for everyone in Pennsylvania. Tonight you will meet the people who have spent their lives in a revolving door of incarceration and release. What is different this time is that they are working with Liberty Ministries to completely transform their thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. Watching this work in progress is uplifting for me, and I think you will feel encouraged. Enjoy the program.
prison, in and out of prison, and 30 years of in and out of prison and drug selling and using. That's just life with me. That's all I did. That's all I love to do. So I would wake up in the morning. I would have my drugs on me. I would go out and see customers who wanted it, give it to them. And at nighttime, I would drink beer. I would get high, party all night long. And then wake up broke and can't even buy a cup of coffee. You just come out the store, cops pull up on you, bam. Oh, Thomas, looking for you, you know? Checking me, got drugs on me, boom, I'm gone for 2 years. Then I would get out and just do the same thing, go right back to the same neighborhood. And you end up right back, and I end up right back to where I was doing all over again. I knew I had to stop. And this last prison time I went to, I knew something had to change. I just wanted to live. I went to a rehab one time, you know what I'm saying? It was like 28 days, so I really ain't, do anything, but I was just sober. So, but I liked what I was hearing in the rehab. I liked the things, like I said, I didn't know how to put it into action. Well, here at Liberty, we had it's called the MRT, Moral Recognizance Training, right? It's a book where you specifically deal with things that you've been struggling with throughout your past, that you would normally go use or sell drugs to. So in these studies, we learn how to figure these things out. Like the first step, you had to do this. You had to go back to your childhood and understand what happened in your childhood, when you got angry, or to try to figure out why you the way you behave now. Because normally you bring it from when you're childhood all the way to your adult. Another thing I learned at Liberty is learning how to be honest. Typical honesty, they're cool, but real honesty, when you go digging deep and saying things like you normally wouldn't tell nobody, that was difficult for me, but I knew I had to do it in order to get past, and you gotta learn how to trust. You gotta trust people that was here to help you. You gotta trust the process. And let me tell you, you ain't gonna like everything, but I was willing to listen. It's like so many goals. I accomplished things I didn't think I was gonna accomplish. So now I think I can accomplish anything. You know what I'm saying? I put my mind to. I like warehouse. So I'm at a great job I just got into. Forklifts, the stand-up lifts and stuff like that, and the orders picking and packing. So one day I just want to learn how to operate heavy machinery. Where I was, that wasn't even believable. To accomplish these things, it's no way I thought this was going to accomplish. Man, Liberty is a great program. I'm telling you, Liberty is, I don't know, they just put you in a direction where, where you can really see. The most honest way I could tell you that is just I believe. When I say believe, I know you believe, I ain't talking about the Bible, but I believe that I can accomplish things, than opposed to before when I didn't believe it. I told myself I did, but I really didn't. You know what I'm saying? Now the difference between them, I believe it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the best way I can just boil it down to. I believe it, I believe.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer said that Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ. Now, a typical approach to discipleship, spiritual transformation, and being like Jesus is to try harder. It doesn't work, and that's because there's a huge difference between trying to do something and training to do something. Spiritual transformation and discipleship is not a matter of trying harder, but of training wisely. And the distinction between the two is key. Learning to think, feel, and act like Jesus is at least as demanding as learning any other skill, such as learning to play the piano, learning a language, or training to run a marathon. Following Jesus simply means learning from Him how to arrange our life around activities that allow us to live in the fruit of the Spirit. Here at Liberty, it is our goal to instill spiritual disciplines that can help one gain power to live life as Jesus taught and modeled it. Why? Well, because disciplined people have developed discernment and have learned to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Paul said in Romans 14, "For none of us lives to himself, and none of us dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's." Henry Nouwen wrote in The Return of the Prodigal Son, "At issue here is the question, to whom do I belong? God or to the world? Many of my daily preoccupations suggest that I belong more to the world than to God. There are endless ifs hidden in the world's love. The world's love is, and always will be, conditional. And as long as I keep looking for my true self in the world of conditional love, I will remain hooked to the world, trying and failing and trying again. It is a world that fosters addictions because what it offers cannot satisfy the deepest craving of my heart. So, the life-changing question that each resident here at Liberty must grapple with are, to whom do I belong? Who am I? And what am I here for? The answer to these questions will ultimately determine how they live the rest of their lives. Our program is designed to encourage and help these men and women work intentionally towards transforming the way they see themselves and their connection to God. And because of this, the way they live their lives and think about their purpose and meaning can change dramatically from the day they walk through these doors for the first time.
My hallelujah belongs to you. 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 You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it.
My hallelujah belongs to you.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
My hallelujah belongs to you. My hallelujah belongs to you. My hallelujah belongs to you. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. All of the glory belongs to you.
All the glory, Lord, yeah.
All of the glory belongs to you.
All the glory, yeah.
All of the glory belongs to you.
All the glory.
All of the glory belongs to you. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it.
Say hallelujah.
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 All the glory.
All the glory.
All the honor.
All the honor.
All the praise.
All the praise. You deserve it. You deserve it.
A big component of our ministry is to serve those behind prison walls, and we do that in various ways through our staff as well as our enthusiastic volunteer team. I'd like to share first about how our staff connects with and produces hope with those incarcerated. Currently, we have 3 passionate chaplains who, with the cooperation and permission of prison staff, teach Bible studies, officiate chapel services, and lead a Christ-centered recovery group, as well as visit one-on-one with those looking for more spiritual support. In addition to our staff, we have over 120 eager volunteers from local churches that have also committed to sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ by consistently providing chapel services and Bible studies in those same facilities. I am proud to share this with you because I know firsthand, as an ex-inmate, the absolute urgency for these intimate and personal moments behind bars. Our motivation for doing this has more than one reason. The first and foremost reason is because Jesus calls us to make disciples of all nations through the Great Commission. My personal motivation or reason comes with a testimony of exactly that. Having been incarcerated in 2005, 6, and 7 allowed me to experience a loneliness I had never experienced before. I was completely isolated from the world and from those whom I loved. It was devastating to watch others receive mail and visits, and for me to not receive a single one. I knew that it was my choices that caused these consequences, but that didn't seem to help my feelings of despair and hopelessness. I was completely on my own. But the good news is that this experience also gave me the greatest gift of all, salvation through Jesus Christ our King. Volunteers, some of whom are still volunteering with us today, came in with Miss Ann, she was our previous women's chaplain, and met me right where I was at. These were my faithful visitors. They came with a smile and a love that I couldn't understand. These strangers gently took me by the hand and graciously looked me in the eye without blinking and told me with such confidence, "Jesus loves you." With that, I broke. I no longer had an excuse to carry the pain and shame anymore. I felt His love for the first time. It was through those strangers who later would become my new family in Christ. All my life, I felt damaged, dirty, and disposable. But what God says in His Word is that we are so loved that He sent His Son, His only true child, Jesus Christ, to not only die for me, but Jesus lived many years on this earth being tempted, mocked, criticized, accused, hunted, and beaten beyond recognition for me and for you, so we can live free, to have the liberty He intended from the beginning. See, Jesus is not a distant God. He is a God who understands because He lived on this earth as a man, yet still fully God. He knows firsthand how broken this world is, and He knows the need for healing and love because He is love. If it wasn't for Liberty Ministries providing an outlet in that jail for me to go to feel safe, to let down my guard, to maybe cry in the room and not be afraid of being a target, to see that the world hadn't stopped and that people actually do care, to see good through all the bad that I've lived through, well, that was a true miracle to me. Liberty Ministries brought me hope. Liberty Ministries showed me through Jesus Christ that I do have a real purpose in life, and that purpose wasn't to be a dirty rag used and tossed on the ground. I have value in the eyes of Jesus, and because of that, I'm a new creation today. I'm also happy to say that I am free from the bondage of heroin, and that is my reason for visiting those in prison, as Jesus speaks about in Matthew. I want to share what and who was shared with me in my darkest times. But we can't do this without your support. We need your prayers and your time. We need your financial support and your donations at our thrift stores to continue doing what we are called to do. Consider how you will help those in prison today.
Thank you for joining us and for being interested in what God is doing in the lives of men and women who are part of Liberty Ministries. In Micah 6:8 it says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Those words from the prophet Micah best express for me what Liberty Ministry is all about, as we seek to bring grace, hope, and transformation to those who are broken by incarceration in the Philadelphia region. You know, some of the most moving experiences for me as a board member have come as I've listened to the stories of men and women as they graduate from the various phases of the discipleship programs offered here at Liberty Ministries. And what seemed like the end of the road for them in prison became, through their admission into Liberty Ministries, a new road of grace, hope, and the invitation to begin to walk with Christ through a process of deep spiritual and personal transformation. As a result, as the work of God's Holy Spirit, I've watched God doing a transforming work as families are brought back together, husbands and wives, parents and children, siblings reconciled to one another. It's a marvelous evidence of God's amazing grace and mercy at work at Liberty Ministries. And none of this would be possible without the faithful and ongoing support of God's people, giving financially so that the work can continue. It was Hudson Taylor, one of the first missionaries to take the gospel into China, who said, "God's work done God's way will never lack God's resources." And we believe that to be true. Liberty Ministries is God at work transforming the lives of men and women, and we're continuing by God's grace to seek to do this work God's way and then trust Him to supply the needed resources. And so we want to invite you to partner with us and prayerfully consider being part of God supplying the financial resources through your giving so that God's grace, hope, and transformed lives may continue to flow through God's work here at Liberty Ministries.
My life before going into Liberty Ministries was an absolute mess. 12 years I struggled with heroin addiction, committing crimes, really dark place. Man, when I got arrested, I really looked up in the sky and I just looked up at God and I said, thank you. I said, I knew I didn't have to run. I knew I didn't have to live the way I did for that time being. You know, I knew I wanted to change, but this was God getting me to that first step in looking into what I really wanted with my life. It's funny now that I look back at it, in a way, I think God used the inmates as a way to introduce Liberty Ministries to me. I know I want to change. I was desperate. You know, it was either get help or die. So I came to Liberty humble. I really came to Liberty humble, and for the first time in my life, I listened instead of doing what I wanted to do. I shut up. I took everything that Liberty offered me and applied it. I started to read the Bible. For the first time in my life, I read the Bible and really started to make sense to me. I slowly started to forgive myself. It took a little more time than I thought it would, but I truly forgive myself today. Changing my attitudes, changing my whole behavior, how I treated people, making amends, and really started to change me. Liberty Ministries opened the door for me to really sink in with Ephesians, and that's what I do every day of my life today. I put on the whole body, the whole armor of God. I envision myself putting it on, strapping up my belt, putting on my shield, and I'm ready to take on the enemy every day of my life. So my next step is to leave Liberty. So I'm actually flying back to California this weekend to go be reunited with my daughters for the first time in 5 years. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous. It's been an emotional week for me because it's coming up. I walked out on them 5 years ago because of my drug addiction. And I thought they wrote me off. I never thought that this day would be coming. And Sunday I fly out and I'm gonna be there 8 days and be reunited with my kids, most of my family that I haven't seen in years. I have a relationship with my family. My family trusts me, they want me around. I couldn't even have said these things a year ago. Liberty Ministries has saved my life, and this is what I needed. I will truly be grateful to Liberty Ministries for the rest of my life.
I hope that what you've watched this evening has touched you. I never get tired of seeing lives transformed. The work that these men and women do here takes time and many resources. The truth is, without financial support from people just like you, we would not be able to do the work that God has called us to. I'd like to ask you to join with us and make a donation to this important work. Your donation will help individuals, their families, and positively impact the entire community. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this important work.